Something shifted tonight, and no, it wasn't loud, dramatic, or explosive. It was quieter than that, but somehow it hit harder. Because in a show like Beyond the Gates, we've been trained to expect chaos as the language of change. Screaming matches, betrayals, slamming doors. That's how growth usually announces itself here. But this time, growth walked in softly and sat down at a birthday table. The calm before the emotional earthquake. Let me set the stage quickly, because what happened in this episode might seem simple on the surface, but it's anything but. Kat, who has every reason to hold on to her anger, didn't fight Eva. She didn't lash out. She didn't even avoid her. She invited her to her birthday. Let that sink in for a second. This is the same Kat who, not long ago, wouldn't have entertained the idea of being in the same room as Eva without emotional armor fully on. The same Kat who carried resentment like it was part of her identity. And yet here we are. At first, it feels almost unrealistic. Too easy, too neat. You can practically hear the audience thinking, wait, that's it? No explosion? But then Eva reveals something deeply personal, Anita's health condition, and suddenly the emotional temperature changes. Not dramatically, not theatrically, just enough, and that's where the brilliance begins. Kat's evolution, subtle but unmistakable. Here's the thing. People don't usually change in big cinematic moments. They change in small decisions that feel almost ordinary. And Kat's decision, that was anything but ordinary. Because forgiveness, or at least the willingness to pause hostility, isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about choosing not to let it control your next move. Old Kat wouldn't have done this. Not a chance. Old Kat needed to be right, needed to be heard, needed the emotional upper hand. But this Kat, she's different. She's aware. She's evolving. And the show doesn't just tell us that it proves it through behavior. The way she treats Eva during the party isn't forced. It's not performative kindness. It's measured, intentional, and most importantly, respectful. That's a big word here, respect. Because what Kat gave Eva in that moment wasn't forgiveness. It was dignity. And honestly, that might be even more powerful. Eva's role, catalyst or genuine bridge. Now, let's talk about Eva, because her role in this shift is fascinating. Was her revelation about Anita purely out of concern, or was it strategic? It's a fair question. This show has taught us not to take emotional gestures at face value. Every confession, every act of vulnerability can carry layers. But here's where I lean. Eva felt real in this episode. Not perfect, not innocent, but sincere. Her decision to share Anita's condition wasn't manipulative, it was human. It came from a place of urgency, maybe even guilt. And in doing so, she created a bridge, a fragile one, but a bridge nonetheless. And Kat, she chose to step onto it. That's the key, because reconciliation only works when both sides take a risk. Eva spoke, Kat listened. Simple, rare, effective. The party more than just a celebration. On paper, it's just a birthday party. Decorations, surprises, laughter. Tomas and the others clearly put in effort to make Kat feel loved, and she did feel it. You could see it in her reactions, the surprise, the warmth, the brief moments where she let her guard down completely. But the real gift of the night wasn't the party. It was perspective. Because in the middle of all that joy, Kat was confronted with something deeper. The realization that holding on to anger might be costing her more than she thought. And that realization didn't come from confrontation. It came from connection. Even Martin's gesture thanking Eva for her prayers for Anita reinforces this shift. It validates Eva's sincerity in a way that Kat couldn't ignore. It's subtle, social proof, and it matters. The twist no one expected, but everyone needed. Let's be honest. If someone told me a few episodes ago that Kat would be the one to initiate peace with Eva, I would have laughed. Not because it's impossible, but because it didn't feel earned yet. And yet, here we are. So what changed? Not the circumstances. Kat did. That's the twist. Not a hidden secret, not a shocking betrayal, just character growth. And somehow, that's more satisfying than any plot twist this show could throw at us, because it feels real. A man trapped in his own past. While Kat is moving forward, Ted is stuck. And painfully so. He's still holding on to what he lost with Nicole. The routines, the comfort, the version of life that no longer exists. And the worst part? He knows it's his fault. Leslie wasn't just a mistake. She was a catalyst for destruction. And now Ted is left dealing with the aftermath, trying to piece together something that can never fully be restored. There's regret there. Deep, unresolved regret. And it shapes everything he does now, including his quiet hope that Kat and Eva can find peace, because maybe, just maybe, if they can fix what's broken between them, it might ease his own guilt. It's not redemption, but it's something. Acceptance versus letting go. Kat gets it, Ted doesn't. Here's a contrast I find incredibly compelling. Kat has accepted her parents' divorce. Ted hasn't. Let that sink in. The daughter, who arguably had less control over the situation, is handling it with more emotional maturity than the father who caused it. That's not just ironic. It's telling, because acceptance isn't about being okay with what happened. It's about recognizing that you can't change it and choosing to move forward anyway. Kat gets that Ted is still negotiating with the past, and until he stops, he'll remain stuck in this emotional limbo. The Leslie problem. Peace was never the plan. Now, just when things start to feel hopeful, here comes the complication. Leslie. Because if you think she's going to sit back and watch Ava and Kat build a relationship, think again. Leslie thrives on division, on narratives of us versus them. She needs Eva to see the Dupree family as enemies, not potential allies. Why? Control. Because as long as Eva feels isolated, she's easier to influence. And that's where this fragile peace becomes vulnerable. Kat may be opening the door, but Leslie is already looking for ways to slam it shut. So the real question isn't whether Kat and Eva can build a relationship. It's whether they can protect it. Is this reconciliation too easy? Let's address the elephant in the room. Was this too smooth? Too convenient? Too fast? I'll be honest, I asked myself the same thing. But then I thought about it differently. This isn't resolution, it's initiation. Kat didn't forgive Eva completely. She didn't erase the past. She didn't suddenly become best friends with her. She made one choice: to stop fighting. And that's not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a much more complicated one, because maintaining peace, that's always harder than starting it. My take, this is the kind of writing the show needs. If you ask me, this episode did something very smart. It resisted the urge to go big. Instead, it went deep. It trusted the characters. It trusted the audience. And it reminded us that not all turning points come with fireworks. Some come with quiet decisions that change everything. Kat's growth feels earned not because of what she said, but because of what she didn't say. The arguments she chose not to start. The bitterness she chose not to feed. That's maturity. That's storytelling. So what comes next? Here's where things get interesting. Because this new dynamic between Kat and Ava, it's full of potential, but also full of risk. Will they actually grow closer? Or will old wounds resurface the moment something goes wrong? And more importantly, what happens when Leslie inevitably interferes? Because she will. She always does. But maybe, just maybe, this time things will be different. Because Kat is different. And once a character reaches that level of self-awareness, you can't just push them back to where they were. At least, not without consequences. The quiet moments matter most. No betrayals, no explosions, no dramatic cliffhangers. And yet, this episode stayed with me. Because sometimes the most powerful thing a character can do is choose peace when chaos feels easier. Kat did that. And whether it lasts or not, that choice matters more than anything else. So now I'm curious, not about what will break next, but about what might actually hold.